what do you do when you run out of material before you're done with your piece? That's what we're going to look at today in Dr. Doug's Daily Tips for how to write great LDS church music. We're back again in the same primary song, We Bow Our Heads by Alexander Schreiner. And there's a wonderful example of what to do when it seems as if you've already led yourself to the end, but you're still a couple measures short. You know there's more to say. What do? Well, here's one way to think about this. So if you look at this this beautiful little song, take a look and compare the opening tune, this da-da-dee-da-da-da-dum, to the beginning of the second line. There's a pickup, but then it has this almost the same shape. Da-da-ya-da-dee-dee-dum. The difference is that instead of a leap of a fourth from the F to the B flat, we have a leap of a sixth from an F up to a D. But then once they hit the D, it basically steps down in the same shape that we had before, but a third higher. Okay, that's a beautiful example of good melody writing, to have your second half be similar enough to the first half that it's recognizable, but slightly different in a way that still is, like I said, very recognizable, but a bit different, which we always like a bit different because it helps keep the listener engaged. However, there's a bit of a problem with the chords when you get to the word Father. We've paused at the midway point here on an authentic cadence. We pause on the 1 chord. So we're in B flat, and we get this B flat chord at the end of the line. Then the piece starts over. Now that bit right there, Father, this chord is a 1-6-4 chord, so it's the B flat chord with F in the bass. So in other words, second inversion 1 chord. And second inversion 1 chords with leaping basses like this cast a very specific signal out to the listener that it's almost over. Because what we normally get when we get a 1-6-4 chord like that is we get the 1-6-4, and then it goes to 5 or 5-7, and then to 1. So he has the 1-6-4, and then he follows it with a 5-7, which is F7. So our ear is like, oh, he's going to end. But he can't end. He only just started the second phrase. He's still got, 3 more bars to go. So what do? Well, what he does is he follows the tune. So we get the D, like I mentioned before, D, C, B flat, A. But the bass helps us. Instead of having 5 go directly to the final 1 chord, he has it go toward the 6 chord. Now the 6 chord appearing after the 5-7 is what we call a deceptive cadence. In other words, we thought we were going to go 1-6-4 to 5 to 1, and the piece would be over. But instead, we pull out the rug. Instead of going 1-6-4, 5, 1, we get 1-6-4, 5, 6. Oh, it's like, whoa. It kind of felt resolved, but now we stopped on this minor chord. We're not done yet. And then you have to write another little tag ending to finish it. So he does take us to the 6, but he inserts something right before the 6, which makes the arrival at the 6 much more interesting. He bridges the gap between the F and the G with an F sharp. So F sharp, and then the minor 6 chord. So this is actually, the analysis here is not correct. That is an F sharp diminished, fully diminished 7 chord going to a G minor chord. So that's like a cadence in the key of G minor. Now, he could have skipped the F sharp and gone straight to G. But by putting this little half-step wedge between the F and the G, the arrival at the G feels all the more intense. Okay, we get the... All right, so that's the first thing he does. But what's curious about this is we usually get a deceptive cadence happening on a strong beat. But in this case, it happens on the second beat, a very weak beat, and the F sharp happens on the strong beat. Whoa, that's super interesting. By displacing it with that downbeat F sharp and the resolution to beat 2, it continues to pull our expectations forward. In other words, the listener's like, wait, that can't be ending, because F sharp, a chromatic note on a downbeat. Wait a second. That can't be right. So we got to keep listening to see how it's going to be resolved. It's like a TV show episode that opens up a new story problem at the end of the episode. You have to come back to the next episode to keep watching. Okay, so that F sharp on the downbeat resolving to the G on beat 2 kind of opens this story loop idea. And then right after that, the next bit of trickery he does, using a similar principle, is then he pauses the next strong beat. He pauses on another chromatic note. Now, here's why he does this. When you arrive at the 6, when you arrive at a deceptive cadence, you have to give your listener a return to the 1 chord. And the smoothest way to do that is to find the 5 chord as soon as possible. So our ear, just from traditional music listening that we all do, our ear is used to hearing the 6 chord in a deceptive cadence that then finds its way quickly to the 5 chord. Now, we do get a 5 chord, but we don't get it until over here. We get another 1-6-4, that B flat with F in the bass, and then F7, the 5-7, and then the final one. And that one is on a strong downbeat, and this one's on a strong beat, and this one's on a strong beat. But before he does that, he pauses on this interesting A7 chord. Why A7? Well, firstly, because the E natural in the bass is like the F sharp was a half step to G. Well, the E natural is a half step to the F. And we know we need to get to the F because that's going to be the 5. So he just precedes it with a little half step to heighten the expectation. And then he's like, well, let me see if I can heighten the expectation a little more. He knows that he needs to get to a D in one of the voices of the 1-6-4 chord, so why not precede it with a half step as well? So we get E natural, C sharp, and then those 2 notes resolve up to the 1-6-4, and then the 5-7, and then the 1. It's a very clever way of getting to a deceptive cadence and stretching the musical territory when we thought we were ending too soon at this point. So listen, I'll play it slowly so you can hear how these little half steps keep the ear moving forward. Now we're resolved. All right, so the combination of taking the original tune up a third plus doing this half step motion in the middle makes that a very clever little 2 measures in a quite simple primary song. But just because you're writing a simple primary song doesn't mean you can't use some really cool emotional expectation tools like these. That is your tip for today. If you enjoyed it, hit subscribe, ring the bell so you can get notified every time I post a new video. And head over to latterdaymusiversity.com where you can get a bunch of more free tips about how to write great LDS church music. We'll see you next time.